Welcome to Mysteries and Crime, where hidden truths unravel under the weight of time. Tonight, we explore the high-profile legal troubles surrounding Russell Brand, comedian, actor, and now accused. Clue question: what moment marked the turning point in Russell Brand's public reckoning? Stay alert. The answer is hidden in plain sight. In September of 2023, 4 women stepped forward with serious allegations against Russell Brand. Their claims, involving sexual assault and emotional abuse, dated back to the early 2000s. The revelations ignited public outrage, forced institutional responses, and reopened long-ignored questions about fame, power, and accountability in plain sight. It began with a broadcast and a reckoning. On Saturday, September 16th, 2023, the Sunday Times, The Times, and Channel 4's dispatches published a joint investigation. The allegations were stark. 4 women accused Russell Brand of sexual misconduct, spanning from 2006 to 2013. The timing was no accident. Hours before the documentary aired, Brand released a video on social media. Calm, composed, he addressed his audience directly. Amidst this litany of astonishing, rather baroque attacks are some very serious allegations that I absolutely refute, he said. He insisted every relationship he ever had was consensual. But the reaction was swift. Within hours, YouTube demonetized his channel. Promoters canceled his live shows. Content featuring Brand was quietly removed from the BBC and Channel 4 archives. The Metropolitan Police confirmed that it had received a report related to an alleged sexual assault. UK regulators, including Ofcom, launched formal inquiries. Politicians weighed in, calling for platform accountability and transparency. Brand's supporters framed it as censorship. His critics called it overdue. The story had exploded into the public sphere. And while Brand denied the claims, the machinery of investigation was already in motion. The curtain had been pulled back, and the spotlight turned cold. The 4 women at the heart of the investigation did not come forward lightly. Each shared accounts spanning from 2006 to 2013, years when Russell Brand's celebrity was at its height. Their stories, though separate, were bound by recurring patterns: control, coercion, and power imbalance. The first, referred to as Alice, was just 16. According to her account, Brand, in his early 30s, knew her age. She described being picked up from school in a chauffeured car, taken to his home, and gradually isolated from friends and family. She claimed the relationship turned emotionally manipulative, alleging that Brand's behavior left her terrified and unable to speak out. Another woman alleged that Brand raped her at his home in Los Angeles in 2012. She later sought help from a rape crisis center and provided text messages reportedly exchanged with Brand, messages in which she confronted him, and he allegedly offered no denial. The third woman said she worked with Brand on a media project. She accused him of cornering her, groping her, and becoming aggressive when she resisted. Her complaint was never formally reported, but internally, the incident was allegedly laughed off. A 4th woman claimed Brand exposed himself to her in a professional setting before making inappropriate jokes on air moments later. Each story, though told anonymously, was supported by contemporaneous evidence or corroborating testimony. And together, they painted a deeply unsettling portrait of what may have happened behind closed doors. Russell Brand, once hailed as a comedic genius, later rebranded as a voice of spiritual resistance, was now at the center of a growing legal and cultural crisis. In the period when the alleged incidents occurred, Brand was rising fast, from raunchy stand-up routines to starring roles in films like Get Him to the Greek. He was known for his flamboyant, hypersexual public persona. He spoke openly, and often proudly, about sex, addiction, and excess. But the allegations cast a different light on that persona. Colleagues and insiders later described a cult of personality around him, one where boundaries blurred and misconduct was whispered about, but never challenged. One producer recalled an environment where female staff were told to avoid being alone with him. Others claimed that his behavior was an open secret in certain media circles, tolerated under the guise of celebrity eccentricity. In recent years, Brand shifted focus, trading tabloid headlines for philosophical podcasts and anti-establishment monologues. His YouTube platform, followed by millions, painted him as a truth teller exposing corruption and control. When the accusations surfaced, Brand claimed he was being targeted for speaking out against mainstream narratives. He described the media as a weapon and himself as its latest casualty. But investigators weren't asking about politics. They were asking about dates, documents, and the women whose stories, though long buried, were finally being heard. Between 2006 and 2013, several women described troubling interactions involving Russell Brand, incidents that were later published by major UK outlets in September of 2023. These reports spanned multiple years, locations, and professional contexts. But over time, patterns began to emerge. One of the first accounts came from a woman referred to in reports as Alice. According to the investigation, her contact with Brand began when she was just 16 years old. At that time, Brand was in his early 30s and at the height of his celebrity in the UK. She described a relationship that became increasingly imbalanced, marked by emotional pressure and isolation. Her handwritten journals from that time, shared with reporters, reportedly supported her description of the experience. Another woman shared her experience from 2012 in Los Angeles. She claimed that an encounter with Brand left her deeply shaken, and she sought medical and psychological support afterward. Text messages, reviewed by journalists, appeared to show a follow-up conversation between her and Brand, where she confronted him. His responses, as shared in the report, acknowledged past instability, but did not directly address her concerns. A third individual, who worked with Brand on a media project, described a professional setting where boundaries were allegedly crossed. While no formal complaint was filed at the time, colleagues later confirmed that she had expressed discomfort about the incident, noting a change in her demeanor during the weeks that followed. In a separate incident, a woman recounted a moment that occurred in a television production setting. She alleged that Brand made an inappropriate gesture shortly before going on air. According to the report, those around her did not respond seriously to the situation, and it was quickly brushed aside as part of Brand's shock comic persona. What tied these reports together was not only the time frame, but a shared sense of power imbalance and hesitation to speak publicly. Several of the women said they felt their concerns would be dismissed, given Brand's celebrity status and the cultural norms of the time. It wasn't until journalists began reviewing these individual accounts, years later, that connections became clear. The women had never met, yet their descriptions aligned in theme and circumstance. Each story was told independently, with supporting materials such as therapy records, written journals, and digital communications. Importantly, none of the accounts led to criminal charges at the time they occurred. The women remained unnamed in the media coverage and were supported throughout the journalistic process. When viewed together, the stories painted a larger picture, one that has sparked public debate, institutional reviews, and a reassessment of how allegations involving public figures are handled. It wasn't just about one moment, but a series of them, finally brought into the light. Following the public release of the investigative report on September 16, 2023, law enforcement stepped into the spotlight. The Metropolitan Police confirmed they had received a report of a non-recent incident involving serious misconduct, separate from those published in the media. Rather than rushing into action, authorities began with a scoping exercise, an early-stage review used to determine whether a formal investigation would proceed. Officers quietly contacted potential witnesses, cross-checked dates and timelines, and consulted institutional records from the period in question. Meanwhile, political pressure mounted. Members of Parliament demanded that online platforms hosting brands' content be transparent about their policies. YouTube swiftly suspended monetization on Brand's channel. The BBC and Channel 4 began internal reviews, checking past programming for overlooked complaints. This was no longer just a media story. It had become a matter of public accountability and potential criminal scrutiny. One of the most significant hurdles facing investigators was time itself. Most of the incidents allegedly took place over a decade ago, before encrypted messaging apps, before consistent cloud backups, before forensic standards for digital evidence were as advanced as they are today. In several cases, physical evidence had long since disappeared, if it had ever existed at all. What remained were personal records, text messages, emails, and therapy notes, some preserved, others fragmented. Investigators also examined media archives, travel logs, and internal company correspondence from Brand's production years. Compounding the challenge, most of the women never filed formal complaints at the time. That meant no police interviews, no early forensic examinations, and no chain of custody for any documentation. Despite these limitations, authorities continued gathering testimony, identifying patterns, and piecing together a timeline based not on hard science, but on consistency and corroboration. Justice, in this case, wouldn't come through fingerprints, but through voices once silenced. The public didn't just react, it fractured. Within hours of the allegations going public, the internet ignited, not with clarity, but with chaos. Some stood by Brand, calling the expose a witch hunt, a takedown of an outspoken voice challenging the establishment. Others viewed the revelations as a reckoning long overdue, not just for Brand, but for a system that allegedly looked the other way. Online forums turned into battlegrounds. Anonymous voices clashed. Hashtags trended. But amid the noise was silence from others. Fans who once laughed at his jokes, now rewatching old clips with unease. Something had shifted. Permanently. The media had broken the story. But it didn't stop there. BBC, Channel 4, and the Sunday Times weren't just reporters now. They were part of the narrative. Their role came under scrutiny. How much had they known before? Why hadn't anyone acted sooner? YouTube demonetized Brand's channel. Netflix and other streaming services began quietly reviewing their archives. Ofcom launched inquiries into whether broadcasters had failed in their duty of care. It wasn't just a celebrity under fire. It was the entire media ecosystem. And behind every headline, the same haunting question. Who knew? And when did they choose to forget? The Russell Brand case, though centered on one figure, raised broader questions about complicity and silence. While Brand remained the focal point of the allegations, public discourse quickly expanded. Some speculated whether others in his inner circle, agents, producers, executives, had known more than they admitted. Were red flags overlooked? Were warning signs buried beneath contracts and ratings? Theories swirled across podcasts and Reddit threads. Some argued this was a political hit job, tied to Brand's recent anti-establishment persona. Others believed it was the inevitable collapse of a carefully built facade, one that had gone unchallenged for too long. No charges were filed, but the volume of allegations, combined with supporting documents, shifted the narrative. This wasn't just about guilt or innocence. It was about power and what happens when it becomes untouchable. As of now, there has been no criminal trial. The Metropolitan Police confirmed ongoing inquiries into reported incidents, including one unrelated to the initial exposé. Legal experts noted the challenges: time, jurisdiction, evidence degradation. Most alleged incidents occurred years, even decades, ago. Still, Brand faced consequences in the court of public opinion. Tour dates were canceled, sponsorships disappeared, content was stripped from platforms without formal announcements. In interviews, Brand continued to deny all claims, suggesting coordinated media retaliation. He reframed the narrative from accusation to attack. But in the legal realm, things moved slower. Cautious, procedural. Without formal charges or a courtroom, there would be no verdict, only perception. And in this case, perception proved powerful enough to reframe an entire legacy. So much remains unclear. How many voices were never heard? How many boundaries were crossed, with no one watching? Despite mounting public pressure, formal outcomes remain pending. Investigations continue, but no charges have been filed. The question looms: will this case end with a verdict, or with a slow fade into ambiguity? The timeline is long, the evidence scattered, but the silence that once surrounded this story, that silence has been broken. And now, there's no putting it back. Russell Brand's story didn't just send shockwaves through entertainment. It pierced the heart of public trust. In an era where accountability is being redefined, this case became a measuring stick, not just for legal systems, but for how institutions respond when power is challenged. Media companies are reviewing past decisions. Regulators are tightening policies. Fans are reconsidering what they once laughed at and what they once ignored. Whether justice arrives in a courtroom or not, the conversation has changed permanently. Clue reminder: what moment marked the turning point in Russell Brand's public reckoning? Drop your guess in the comments below. Could a different turn of events have changed everything? Subscribe for more real cases that still leave us questioning. As always, stay curious, stay vigilant, and stay safe.